Hello, my name is Ortez, and welcome back to another episode of Ensure Your Success Podcast. We have real conversations where we have, I should say, real conversations about entrepreneurship. And our podcast or this podcast is raw and uncut. Ain't nothing scripted about it. So if my New Orleans accent come out and I stumble across some words, or I say some words you understand, please forgive me. But it's raw and uncut, nothing scripted. Because, like I said, we want to have real conversations about entrepreneurship. So if you're looking for a way to get rich quick, then this ain't the podcast for you because we gonna have some real conversations. So today I got a special guest, and this brother right here I've been knowing since he was a teenager, and I saw him in a restaurant because he's a world traveler. And I say, man, I got to get you on the podcast. I literally just saw him in a restaurant, and he said, man, no problem. I said, when you leaving out? He said, man, I'm flying out tomorrow. I said, well, man, we about to do this right now. So a lesson for those aspiring entrepreneurs, you got to take the shot when you get the ball. You got to always be ready. You got to always be ready. So I want to welcome to the podcast my brother in faith, brother Umar Clark. Y'all may say Omar, but we say Umar in the Arabic language. Welcome to the Show Your Success podcast, my brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, man. And thank you for doing this impromptu.
Yes, sir.
Without any warning, without anything. So, what I want to start off with, I always just kind of getting right into things because I know you're a busy man and you got to fly out tomorrow. I always ask my guests to introduce themselves and tell the people a little bit about you.
My name is Umar Clark, and I consider myself to be the king of failure. Yes.
And we gonna move this. And look, we doing this raw cut. So I'm gonna move this stand out your
Okay.
face.
Yes, sir.
Because you see, I don't want these people. I want them to see, and I want them to hear. So I'm gonna just kind of we go just put that down there for you, and we good to go. But go ahead.
I call myself the king of failure, and sometimes those failures pay off. So that's how I like to introduce myself.
The king of boy, we about to talk a whole lot,
Yes,
man.
sir.
The king of failure, but that's a new one to me.
Yes, sir.
The king of failure is the king of failure. So, but I'm not gonna call you the king of failure. I know failures is for entrepreneurship. You gotta fail, and that's how we learn. And I respect you being honest about
sir.
that because a lot of times people think failure for whatever reason is not part of the journey,
Yes, sir.
particularly as an entrepreneur, and that's far from the truth. Unfortunately, social media glamorized now. You could just start a business and get rich overnight without putting in any work, without any failure, and that's far from the truth. So I want you to share with us, when did you jump off the porch as an entrepreneur? What was your first business, or what sparked you to jump off the porch and pursue this entrepreneurship journey?
The thing that sparked me to be an entrepreneur was when I was about 13 or 14 years old. My grandfather told me to never work anywhere where you couldn't make your 5 prayers.
Mm,
And my grandfather was a man who, when he said things, you heard him.
mm,
And so my grandfather grew up, technically, you could say he was illiterate. And he went from that to being a multimillionaire and owned a bunch of real estate and things like that. So he wasn't speaking from a standpoint of a person who's just talking. Like you witness, he had no father, no nothing. And for a person to come from where he came from, I was told by somebody else who knew him growing up that he didn't even have shoes. That's how poor they were. So for him to have said that to me, that triggered two things. One, prayer is important.
mm.
Right. I've never seen a miss Fajr my entire life. For those who don't know what Fajr is, that's our morning prayer that we make as Muslims. And it can be hard to make sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur. When it should be the most important thing we do, but it can be very hard if we're being honest. But I've never seen them miss that prayer. So that triggered two things to me. One, prayer is important. Two, you got to do something for yourself so I can control whether or not I have the time to speak to God. I can make time to speak to God or not. Right. So that's where it started. And then years later, I had a baby on the way. I had just gotten married. I had a very big job opportunity. It's funny how inflation has changed things, but at the time, Norfolk Southern was uh you could get a job without a degree, making 50,000 a year. At the time, that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Still a lot of money.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
and that equated to they in the railroad industry they pay by the day. But it equated to 19, 20 years old making about $30 an hour. And I had a baby on the way. And I went and my wife at the time went into labor while I was at work. She wasn't supposed to go into labor yet, but she did. And so I went to the manager. I said, I gotta go. My son's about to be born. The thing about the railroad industry is you're not allowed to. It's a law. You're not allowed to leave unless you're relieved.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
So if you had an 8-hour shift, it can turn into a 16-hour shift if the other person don't show up. Anybody in the railroad industry will tell you that you're not allowed to leave. So I said, I almost said the guy's name. I said I have to leave because my wife's in labor. He said, I don't know what to tell you. Nobody's here to relieve you. I said, well, I'm relieving myself, and I left and went to go to the hospital. And we struggled insanely after that because I
Mm,
didn't have a job. So that right there, those are the two moments, the most pivotal moments to me, where it's like if I don't create something for myself, I'm gonna go through this forever.
mm,
And so that triggered to me, no, you got to do so. I for me, it was like it was as close to life or death that I've been in my life so far.
mm, mm. Man, that look, that was just powerful in itself. So your grandfather mentioned two things, and uh for our non-Muslim viewers, make your 5 prayers, of course, in our faith, that is incumbent upon us
Yes, sir.
to make our 5 prayers. So never work a job where you can't pray, and then of course do for self.
Yes, sir.
Of course, which is a phrase that was coined in the Muslim community by the Honorable Elijah
Yes, sir.
Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
Do for self. So pray and do for self. Um, and that's two pillars really of mine.
Mm,
So that's something that I think a lot of Muslim entrepreneurs share in common. We seek to get into entrepreneurship so we could have that freedom to pray,
yes, sir.
and that freedom to provide for our family and and to support our family.
Mm, mm,
When your wife went into labor, when you're an entrepreneur, you can say, hey, I can relieve myself and
yes,
not have to
sir.
deal with the consequences of that. So let's talk a little bit. I want to elaborate a little bit more on during that time. Because during that time, making $30 an hour. I mean, for a 19-year-old,
I was about
I,
20.
you're about how old?
Yeah, it's about 20.
You was about 20. About 20. That's we would call that a grown man job.
Yes, sir.
Where I'm from, we would call that grown man money. Because that is definitely a decent wage to take care of your family. Unfortunately, most people would have kept that job.
Yes, sir.
They would have just been like, all right, boss. It pretty much would have kept that job. But because I know you had to know of the consequences that was going to follow that. Um, what what made you say, the hell with this job? I'm going to see my first son being born. What kind of spark? Because most people, most men wouldn't have did it. I'm just being real
Yes,
with you.
sir.
Most people wouldn't have left no $30 hour job. They would have waited till they got off, and then they would have seen
Yes, sir.
about their wife and newborn. But what sparked you to say, I'm gonna walk away from this job, knowing you had a wife to take care of, you had a newborn on the way? So what sparked you, or what gave you the courage to do that?
One, a lot is profit on my boss. I'm not bound down to
Yeah.
nobody. So you're not gonna, and I never want my son to ever be able to look at me and say, my dad cowered to, even though he wasn't born yet, my dad cowered to a situation. And so
Mm,
whenever I make decisions, alhamdulillah, I had a son first. Whenever I make a decision, that's one of the things that really, it strikes me like, okay, because the way I view fatherhood for myself is like, especially having a son, is every decision that I make, as far as my son is concerned, Allah's giving me a second chance at myself.
mm,
So when I look at all my errors, I'm like, all right, I know this didn't work. I'm gonna tell him this. I can't make him do anything, but I'm gonna tell him this. I'm gonna show him this. So in that particular situation, it was a test of faith, and it was a divine moment. Every moment is divine for me, in my
mhm,
opinion. Every single moment is. I don't think that anything is isolated from a divine moment. And so in that moment, it's like, you're doing all this praying all the time. You can't even pray 5 times a day. All right. Everybody can be Muslim when it's convenient. For me, I'm only really Muslim when I make the Muslim decision when everything's against me. right? So in that particular situation, I said, okay, can I give up $30 an hour? So number one, I could be there and do what I'm supposed to do when his family needs him. Can I give it up in a situation? And then I had to ask myself, where does wealth come from? Because regardless of the good job you have, regardless of, you know, even when I have struggle months in business, as you know, one of my prayers I make to Allah, and most people blame the economy. One of my prayers I make to Allah, I say, Ya Allah, economies don't control you. Your wealth has nothing to do with the economy. You own all wealth. Help me. And so in that situation, how can I make that prayer and then say to myself, I didn't go see my son be born because I might not be able to get this job. A lot of them run out of money. So that $30 an hour, I went from that to when I started to truly understand how to do business, how to cycle. I went from that to when we calculated, I was making over $700 an hour. So that right there was a lot testing me as he's done every single day of my life since then. But I think that being able to do that one situation turned into being one of the most rewarding situations of my life. So when he asked me how I was able to do that, I can only attribute that to Allah and Allah alone because I just had to have faith. There was no other way for me to prove. Do you really believe what you're saying every day? Are you really listening to what you're reciting in this prayer every day? I had to really ask. And then what's funny was I didn't even have we had a truck. I actually still own a truck. We never got rid of the truck for a host of reasons. But it's a 1981 GMC Sierra with no AC in it until this day. And I knew it never got rid of it because of what it meant to my son being born and things like that. But because the truck leaked oil, I would have to park at the MARTA station in College Park and take the MARTA. So the whole train down to that truck to get to the hospital in Fayetteville, I'm not gonna sit here and lie on your podcast like I was faith doesn't always look good. I wasn't sitting on that train smiling. No, I was like, damn, what the hell am I gonna do? How I'm explaining this with my, because a family friend, I'm not gonna say his name, I don't know if he wants his name said, a family friend got me the job. It's Norfolk Southern is not a place you can, because they pay so well. It's not a place you can just, I'm gonna just fill out the application. No, you gotta know somebody in there because they're paying so well. And even he was upset, like, I went through all this to get you this job, this, that, the other. And the only thing I could say was, bro, I can't let my son, I'm not gonna be able to explain, I cannot explain this to him 10 years from now. And now that boy don't even know that job ever existed. You don't even know that. So alhamdulillah, it was worth every second, every bit of struggle I went through on that train, the lights being out, not know how he's gonna pay the rent, all of that stuff. It was completely worth it.
It was completely worth it.
I'd do it all over again if Allah gave me the chance.
Alhamdulillah. And so you learned a valuable lesson early.
Yes, sir.
In your entrepreneurship journey.
Yes, sir.
And I'm quite sure, and as we get into the conversation, that same test probably came up again and again. And I'm quite sure if you on this entrepreneurship journey as long as I've been, some more tests gonna come up.
Yes, sir.
Most entrepreneurs fold at that.
Yes, sir.
Due to the pressure. And that was the way of Allah, God, testing you at that moment.
Yes, sir.
And you may didn't know at the time, but it was a test because that's the test you have to go through as entrepreneurship. Making the unpopular decision. Because, going to your wife saying, I don't got no job, that's probably one of the hardest things for any decent man to do, especially if you're a man about taking care of your family, you're a man that stand on moral principles. Yes, the hardest thing you could do is go to your wife and say, I don't have a job no more. That's and a baby just being born. Yes, so sir. I could imagine probably what was going through her mind at the time too as well. So as you was going through this, what are some things or how did you keep yourself afloat? Also, too, you don't got to go into details unless you want to, but how did you and your wife converse? Because a lot of times when I was going through some troubled times, sometimes tension get in the house now. That's just real talk. Tension. So it could get rough, and sometimes, unfortunately, it leads to divorce.
Yes, sir.
It could lead to verbal abuse. Yes, it could lead to physical abuse a lot of times when that money ain't right. Things do happen. But how did you manage, or how did you cope, and how did you both cope? Because going through that time, what kind of what type of advice? Because there's a lot of
For
probably
sure,
a
for
lot
sure.
of people out there who want to be an entrepreneur and probably at that crossroad where they got to quit their job, but really can't quit that job, or if they quit the job, they know a consequence is going to come with it.
Yes, sir.
Not just not having no money, but also to the consequences you got to deal with your family. So how did you navigate, through that period of time?
So I'm very glad you asked that, brother Tess. So for one, I'm going to be completely transparent because, I talked about my son, but there are a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, people younger than me that want to know the reality of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I always like to be, if somebody asks me a question about business or marriage or anything, I'm always as transparent as possible because I want you, hey, this is what comes with this.
Right.
And even if, you go through it, I can promise you Allah has his own test for you that I probably haven't seen, but I'm going to show you mine so you know what's coming. Me and my son's mother, this probably contributed to us divorcing that one period of time. But when I first told her, number one, I think I told her at the wrong time. You shouldn't be telling this to a woman that's in labor.
Yeah.
I could have waited on that one. This is just being young and dumb. That's one part. So, we were already stressing before that because I had just got the job. I'd only been there maybe, I don't want to, maybe 3 weeks, possibly.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I wasn't there that long when I got the job. So we struggle, we struggling. Then Allah blesses me. And so you think things are looking up. And now, so I think that contributed to her having to actually, if I had to, thinking back in the moment we're in now, I'm pretty sure that may have contributed to that level of stress. So if you're a man, the part of manhood that I'm learning is you got to know when to time things as well. Right. So that's one part. Verbal abuse for sure. Alhamdulillah, I never got physical, but verbal abuse on my end. And me and my son's mother have a great relationship now, but I had to go back and apologize to her, like humbly. And what's funny is recently, me and my son were in Medina, and out of the blue, we weren't talking or anything. He said, "Daddy, what mistakes did my mom made that made you not want to be?" He's 8 years old, that not made you not want to be with her no more. I could have lied, but I said, "Nah, this was on me. I was verbally abusive." I didn't get a chance to break down because he's 8. I didn't know the words to completely break down everything, but I did explain to him what verbal abuse was. And with a woman, if I'm being honest, in my opinion, verbal abuse is worse than physical abuse because they internalize things on a level that a man never would. I could joke with you, brother, because I could say something. I could joke on your shoes. You'll joke back on me. That's the end of it.
That's it.
If I joke on my wife like that, she might have really loved those shoes. So I say that to say, that period of my life, looking back, there would have been some real conversations I would have had with myself if I was her father. Like I would have had to sit this dude down. Yo, we got a real problem. You know what I mean? So that definitely contributed to it, but I don't want to make an excuse and just say that's all that it was. It was so many contributing factors to who I was as a person at the time and how I thought. You have this perception, and let me speak on myself when I'm saying this. You had this perception of what manhood is, and what I've learned as I've gotten older is being a man has very little to do with controlling a woman. That don't make you a man. I think that's kind of weak. If that your idea or a woman can enhance your situation on levels men never could if you treat her right. And I'm learning that now in the marriage I'm in now. Like, whoa, how much were you missing? So I've made this much money without her, and now I'm seeing things, things that she sees that I would never see. Could have did it this way. Do I always want to hear it? No. But I say that to say, when I look back at that, it was nothing but complete ignorance and weakness. When it's not a man's role to control a woman. That's not even when she's in our life. It's a man's role to control himself. So the metaphorical gun I was pointing, I should have been pointing at myself. Yeah. But she was an easy target. And now on top of that, you're nursing my son. So I don't know what effect that's having on him. She's going through postpartum. All that. It's just so many things. And I'm so happy you asked the question because I can be transparent about it. Yes, when I look now, like, yo, this is why when people ask me about entrepreneurship, ask me about marriage, I'm like, it is the hardest thing on the planet on top of being a man, because being a man is hard as hell. And then I'm dumb enough to add more on
black
top.
Man.
Yeah. Okay, now we got to add a whole nother thing, being a black man on top of that. Right. It's the hardest thing on the planet. But if you have faith and you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to have minimal friends, because they have to be entrepreneurs to understand you.
Yes.
Working class friends will not understand you.
That's right.
Because every chance they get, they're going to say, why you just don't get a job? That's not an option for me.
Yeah.
I'm the only one of my parents' children who's been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years. So when they say, my siblings say, if I have here's what people don't get, right? because everybody just looks at the P&L sheet, that's not telling the whole story. So if I went from making $100,000 a month and then it drops to 30, everybody's like, oh, you still making 30 grand a month? No, my lifestyle, if I had 2 years of $100,000 a month and I dropped to 30, which is a true story, that's a huge drop.
Right.
That's a humongous. Now I gotta let people go. I gotta have those hard conversations. And everybody's solution is, yo, why you just don't get a job? That's not an option.
That's not option.
This thing is, like I said before, this is for me, it's do or die. And I can only be around people to understand it. I don't have a lot in design. I don't have another option. It's like, oh man, I've never even been on a website in the last 10 years. I went from millions of dollars to zero, literally, brother. It says literally millions of dollars to zero. Because this is what I say, it's easy to make money, but somebody has to teach you how to keep it. This is what most people miss. So I went from millions of dollars in my 20s to zero and had to turn that whole thing around. And the thing is, and I never one time in that period did I say, let me go on Indeed.com and apply. It's not an option.
It's not an option.
Once I sit there, there's a passage in our book where Allah says he loves those who, make your decision, I do my best to live by that. And so when I make a decision, if I made my 2 rakahs on it, I got up at night and I made my 2 rakahs on it, I made a decision. It's not, now I know I'm being tested. It's not an option for me to say, Allah, I'm gonna get a job. It's not a pride thing. It's not an option. Just like, for some people, it might not be an option to drink Sprite. It's just not an option for me. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna say to myself, because I believe Allah brought me too far. And he's giving me too much information, too many access to people like I have in this room right now. Too many access to people who have skill sets that can say, hey, maybe you're looking at this wrong. I can't tell brother I mean. He's like, hey, maybe you're looking at that wrong. This is what brotherhood's for. But you need people who have been in a position like yourself, who've been there, because I've watched you you don't know, you're one of the contributing factors to me saying to you don't even know that. Saying to myself, yeah, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. When I'm 15, 16, we watched you. You don't even know that. So I say that to say, people like yourself in our community who chose, y'all made it look easy. I probably should have asked some questions before I jumped in the water like that. But I know you caught hell. I'm certain. I don't even have to ask you. I don't even have to say, no, I know, because now that I done went out there and got battle tested, I'm like, this is what y'all were dealing with on top of being black. And your time was much harder than mine, on top of being black, on top of being Muslim, on top of being a husband, on top of being a father. And the list goes on and on and on. I don't even have to say, when I watch your podcast, because I've watched almost every episode, when I watch your podcast, I don't even have to say to myself, oh, brother Ortez probably been through it. No, I know. I know. One day I'm gonna sit and just get the specifics. Hey, how'd you deal with this? How'd you deal with that?
Right.
But I'm grateful people like yourself did that, because now when I face something that I don't understand, I can say, hey, brother Ortez, when you were in this situation, what did you do about this? You know what I mean? Right. So I hope I didn't go all over the place to answer your question. But
man, you look, brother, you have answered the question on point.
Yes, sir.
You definitely answered the question on point, and I commend you because it take a man to admit that.
Yes, sir.
A lot of times as men, for me, the definition of a man is being able to take ownership and accountability.
Yes, sir.
And as we, as we used to say, back in the street day, take your charge. You know what I'm saying? Take your charge. And basically that means be accountable.
Yes, sir.
That's all what that really means. So I commend you for taking that.
Yes,
and when you become an entrepreneur, it can bring out the good in you, it can bring out the worst in you. And you have to be able to recognize, because the entrepreneur gonna show you who you I often tell people that entrepreneurship is like a suit. You put a suit on, a nice suit on, you look good, right? And that suit cover up all the imperfections, right? But when you take that suit off, then you see all the imperfections, and that's what entrepreneurship, that's what entrepreneurship is.
True.
So, man, I respect you for just taking ownership, because that's the only way you're going to really move forward. Yes, and but not only that, taking ownership, apologize, and that's Toba, as we say, repentance.
Yes,
And asking for forgiveness. And I went through some similar situations with my mother, and I had to go back and tell her, look, my bad.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? I wish, I could have done things different. I mean, I'm totally happy with my wife.
Oh,
now.
for sure.
Totally happy
Let's make that
with my
clear.
wife.
So
I gotta make that clear. I gotta
home.
make that clear. Shout out to my queen, Naima.
Yes, sir.
But and I shared that recently with my daughter. A lot of things that I wish I could have done. Matter of fact, me and her talked about it on the last. I haven't released it yet, but it's my next one that I'm gonna release. Interviewing my daughter, and just talking to her about some things. And say, hey, I wish I could have done this, but you probably didn't know, but your dad was going through this, at the time. And she shared with me some things she said, Daddy, I never knew. And this gave me a more respect for her mother because me and her mother was at war. We was at war. But she said, my mom used to always say, stay in the child's place. She said, my mama never said nothing bad about you. She said, that's why I never knew nothing was going on. And I know that's how we was raised in New Orleans. That's a New Orleans thing. Prince was, her mother, even though in my head, I used to, because I'm mad, she probably telling my daughter this, but she never told. She said, Daddy, that mama never said nothing. And she said, if I did even try to ask something, she said that grown folk business. Got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? And so that really I was like, wow. So even though I'm thinking in my head one way, but it even go that way. So shout out to my baby mama. She don't like what I call her that, but shout out to her because she did a wonderful job on raising my daughter, who I'm so proud of. So let's kind of move forward. You kind of went through some things, in that kind of got back remarried, but what are some of the things that you did to kind of help yourself start moving in the right direction, and what businesses that you start to look at? Because I know you're doing some things. You're a traveling man, as they say, and you're doing a lot of things out there in Dubai, I think.
Yes, sir.
And out there in that area in the Middle East. But how did you, you went through a rough patch. You went through some things. I want you to talk a little bit about, because you say, look, I made millions and I went from millions to zero.
For sure.
I kind of want you to talk about that a little bit, about that part of the journey, because you came out of out of relationship, and now I'm making money. I got myself together. I'm making money, everything looking good, and I go from that to zero, which that could be that's another test. That's another part of the journey, because I've been there too. Make money, and then I messed it up. Didn't do right by it. Didn't do what I supposed to do with it. Lost it all for whatever reason. Thought it was going to forever coming in. Stopped doing the things I needed to do to come in. So talk about that, because that could be smoke and mirrors sometimes. You're making money, you think you finally arrive, and then boom, the flow fall from underneath you. So talk about that.
So when my son was 1 year old, this shows you how quick things kind of I want to say, I guess we can say transpire, really. And I don't know how much of this she's internalized. The moment she's had my son all the way up to having to live with me, dealing during this time. So we got divorced when he was exactly 1 year old. So from that day, a year later, we're divorced, and then we split up. And so, but before that, before he turned one, at the time, the courier business was jumping. So I said to her, I said, my credit wasn't where it's supposed to be, but I said, yo, drop me off at this dealership. Don't come back to get me. So we went up to it's a dealership. I forget the name. It's up in Union City, but it's still there. She dropped me off. And it was funny was, after my son was born, I went to Umar. Somebody paid for me to go to Umar. I didn't have the money, but I went to Umar, so may Allah reward them for that. I went to Umar, and while I was there, I'm just begging for answers. It really, you know your prayer is serious when you don't even know what you're asking for. Just like, get me out of this, right? So, you know how you go to the Kaaba and people there begging. I was a person at the Kaaba begging. That's how bad things were, right? So I'm joking. Don't take that serious, yo. So I come back and I tell her, hey, take me up to this dealership. Do not come back and pick me up under no circumstances. And she remembers this conversation till this day. My son's in the back seat. She drops me off. I go inside the dealership and I say, I need a car. But what I knew never to say, you never go on a dealership getting something in personal credit and mention a business. Don't do it. They're not going to finance you. So when I told the guy, he's like, what you got to put down? I said, I ain't got nothing to put down. And he pulled the credit. He said, your credit don't look too good. But he was like, hey, we got this. And we actually still have the ProMaster. We still have my brother-in-law has now. We still have the exact van I got that day. 2016 Ram ProMaster 1500. He said, we got this. Look, I give it to you. You ain't got to put no down payment down, but your payment's going to be $450 a month. Can you handle it? I told him, yeah, I ain't have $450 a month coming in, but I said, yeah, I'll take it. Once I got that, I got on Indeed.com and just started looking up courier contract. And I ended up meeting this guy. He's from London, but he had the contract with AutoNation, the dealership. They would move auto parts. And it was a huge contract. He's like, and funny thing is, some of the brothers in the community ended up coming in and working with me on that contract. And he said, you young, can you handle a contract like this? I'm not about to say no. I got to feed my family. I said, yeah. So, I mean, he just gave it to me. There were no more, sign this, gave it to me. And each van at that time, each van you had, after you filled up, after you got your gas and stuff, I couldn't have counted a name. But after you got your gas and stuff, each van is going to bring you about $300 a day. So you probably got to pay a driver the rest of the days for you. We were crazy of it. So the thing was, I was working so hard with that business, and I didn't know nothing about a profit and loss sheet. I didn't realize how much was stuff here. So I'm just working. Now, here's the other side there. When things start to go good in entrepreneurship, that can affect the marriage, diversity, too. Because now this business gonna become my other wife, and I'm spending all my time on this. I'm not giving my son the time he needs, and I'm definitely not giving her the time. Right? So we end up divorcing. Now, what I said that was crazy, but it was true that I could have found a better way to say it. I said, all right, well, now that you're going, I get to focus, watch what happens then. That's what I said. That's like the last conversation we had. So her and my son, they moved up north. I stayed where I'm at in Atlanta. And eventually I did move up to Delaware. Instead of getting my own place, I moved with my sister. But I'm still in control of my business. I'm a driver. And so we just check out. And I checked. And in that one bank, I was $70,000. I never seen no money. And I remember telling my sister, I'm crying like, y'all don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm like, what the world am I doing? I'm like, I've never seen this in my life. I'm like, what in the world am I supposed to do? And she said, she called my mom. She said, you know, you've always been a good person. I love not out there. So I'm still afraid to like, what are you supposed to do with this amount of money? And so I ended up getting out of that business shortly after that because I started, the COVID was coming. I started to see things changing. So I got out of it while I was on top. Right. So I started to get into other business and things like that. And then before I knew it, you know, I'm making about $100,000 a month. I'm like 24, 25 years old. And I don't know anybody I know people that made a lot of money, but not making that much money a month. You know, they make money
legally.
Yeah, legally. Let me say that legally. They're making money over time. They're saving. They're making smart investments, getting the normal, 5 to 9% a year, which is amazing. But at that age, and then the problem was you don't have many people to go to for advice, and then you listen to your own advice, which I think is worse. So I'm telling myself, man, this is never going to end. The problem is you start living like that. So I start living like a 20, I'm not a person that splurges. I'm not into cars and things like that. But now you think, when you come from poverty, you automatically tell yourself, when I get up, I got to take care of everybody. Well, the issue with that is people are tasked with taking care of themselves. Right. That ain't your job. So I try to tell people that when I see a young guy who's making a lot, I tell him, yo, don't get into that trap. Because what ends up happening with most human beings is this. If I have two people, Brother Ortez, I have a man here and a man here. I give him a bowl of rice every month. He's happy with that. I give him a bag of rice every month. He's happy with that. But now, when I go from giving him a bowl to a bag, he loves me. When I go from giving him a bag to a bowl, he hates me. He hates you. But he's still getting rice that you didn't have to pay for. But he feels like you deprived him. That's what happens with human beings. And I learned that the hard way. And then I'm hiring people who aren't qualified for the positions they have and overpaying them for it. You think there's no favors in business. It's not how it works. It don't work. You want to be in this thing long term, you got to do 0 favors and let people do favors for themselves. It's right. Better to give an opportunity than it is to give money. Right. Because then it's a few reasons for that. You can actually see if a person is somebody that should stick around, and then a person can realize, I can do something for myself. So the mistake I was making was like, if I saw a problem, I thought I could just pay the problem off. There aren't many problems you can pay off. Things have to be addressed head on. Okay, let's see. This division of your company is not working. You think, oh man, let me just pay this. Let me just pay this guy right here. I need to solve it. and it don't work like that.
No.
Maybe you have to have a tough conversation, which I avoided a lot while I was young, which now is my number one priority. We're gonna have a tough conversation up front,
Up front. That's
right?
That's right.
And I have to credit my wife for that. She, because she would have tough conversations with me, right? I'm talking my wife now, so she's clear, Tanisha. And so I would do my best to avoid tough conversations because I didn't want to look at myself, and I had money, so I think I thought I could buy myself out of every single thing.
Situation.
It does not. It will. Life will never work like that.
No.
And to prove that, look at the president of the United States. He has all his money. He can't buy himself out of none of. He thinks he's delaying what's coming, but it's not, bro. It's coming. The storm's coming. It's here already. So I say that to say I was tasked with being my own Donald Trump, is what I can say. So when you're that young, you're making that much money. And then I could remember the 1 month where the $100,000 I had, it was 70,000. And right then and there, you should start looking. What didn't work? What did I do wrong? What did I change my marketing strategy? Nope. That arrogance is there. And one of the biggest reasons I'm so grateful Allah humbled me at that time was because I was attributing my success to myself. Like I did something. Right.
You just a while ago you were begging Allah
Yeah, I'm
power,
begging.
but now you contribute to yourself.
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
nah, this is
success.
all me. I'm so skilled. I know everything. And Allah will put me in rooms with people that $100,000 was something they laughing at. And I didn't know because I was so arrogant. I had no idea who I was sitting next to. Even now, I'm dealing with you. I don't know. You don't know what this person means to Allah.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to you and I'm talking, and what I really learned is that wealth is silent. Because guys will be sitting there, I know that, and now that I'm older, I know they were secretly laughing like, this young guy don't know what he got, don't even understand. And I'm sitting there talking. These guys got oil money.
Yeah.
And later, some of these same people were kind enough to talk to me. Like, yo, this, you could have did this differently, but if you had to shut up and listen, somebody could have told you, do this, put your money in this, do this. And that 100,000 will be making its own money without you even having to touch it. Right? And so, my grandfather is like, I've never met nobody that good with money ever. I could have asked him. But you just so, you that young, and I can't just keep blaming youth. I'm just talking about myself. I'm so ignorant at the time that there's no such thing in this life that doesn't end. Everything ends. And my brother gave me some advice to the prophet. I'm gonna just take one part of it where the prophet said, make use of your wealth before it's exhausted. So the message of Allah tell you it's gonna come to an end. You might want to listen, but in my mind, I'm like, nope, this is happening forever.
Can't take it to the grave.
What makes it worse is COVID comes. So then you have an influx of human beings who never had money with money. Now they're spending money with me. So not only am I doing 100,000 a month, that 100,000 balloons in almost 300,000 a month because COVID. Everybody has money. People aren't even doing their homework with them. They're just buying. And man, when the COVID thing runs out, Biden gets back in office, that's when we hit the drop. Boom. Now you got to see, number one, are you really a Muslim? Are you really a man? And do you really know business? Because if you really know business, you'll be able to solve this.
You can solve it. All right.
But I'm still arrogant. Like, nah, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to figure this out by myself. And then it doesn't work. So now, if you go from that amount of money to making 20, 30 a month, you're broke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Only people who know business will tell you, yo, you're broke.
Yeah.
Somebody who's making 5,000 is trying to get to 30. But a man that hit that, what one of the guys told me that I referenced this guy's probably, I'm exaggerating, he's probably making $100,000 a week. He said it's not failure, it's called cycling. And if you don't learn how to cycle, you won't be in this game for long. So most people, when they cycle, they think it's the end of the world. The world ain't over until you're in the grave. And so when I think about that now, that huge decline, your expenses stay the same until you change them. So I got all these invoices and things on auto pay. And then by the end of the month, you got to pay Amex a certain amount. And you like, whoa. Then you look at the account again and you see, oh man, I'm back at 70,000 where I started. It felt like I was a billionaire at that point. Then you look again, now it's down to 10,000. And you're still sitting there arrogantly telling yourself, I can solve this by myself. Then you hit zero. When you go from that amount to zero, I don't think that there are many feelings in the world. I want to think for like 2 seconds, brother. I don't think that there are many feelings in the world that can make a man feel lower than that. No. The only thing I could think of is the power of your wife's tongue in the sense of the things she can say to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that's the only two things where it's like, whoa, this is I felt like I was dead. I'm like, oh my God. Because if you're poor and you stay poor, that's just regular life.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If I grow up and I don't have much and I can't pay my rent, you know, I don't think about suicide. This is regular life. I'm used to this. We'll light some candles, have a candlelight dinner. We'll make it fun.
Right.
But now when you've made a bunch of money and you hit that
Thank you,
point,
bro.
when you've made a bunch of money and you've hit that point, it feels like literal death. Literal death. So now I'm tasked with and this has gone into my second marriage. So she comes at a point where everything's gold. Everything. There's nothing she could. And let me be clear with this: she had her own money coming in, and I don't want to make people would take that, but like, no, she had her own money coming in,
Right.
but she never had to touch it. So she comes at a point where everything's gold. It's like, oh, this thing's never, and she's young too. This thing is never gonna, and there's nothing she could say that we couldn't buy.
Right.
And I'm not talking about credit. I'm talking about cash. Right? There's nothing you can say. So there are a few problems with that, which I'll always make clear. She was a very good woman. I want to make that clear before I get to the next point. There's a few things that you miss when you come into a situation on top.
Mhm.
You never get to know each other.
Yeah.
Everything is so
You don't get to know the true self.
you never get to know the truth. And when I say that, I'm talking about myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't even know what kind of husband I really am. So did she catch some of the verbal abuse? For sure, because I still wasn't done fixing and I'm not even done now, right? My wife now wouldn't accept it. She, and I'm not, none of them accepted it. I'm saying she wouldn't accept it in the sense of like, number one, my wife's older than me now, which I think was what I was missing the whole time. But number two, she makes me look at myself on a level I never really had to. But then those situations made me look at myself, right? So being in that situation, this is another person I wish I had the opportunity to, I never had the opportunity to apologize to her for who I was as a person at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But you're coming into a situation where it's like, oh, honeymoon Dubai, no problem, let's go. Business class seats on Emirates Airlines. A week after we get married, let's go. You know what I mean? So it's all of this superficial stuff, and we're never getting to see, you're never going to see who is this person really. So now you're married to me when it starts to go down. Now you're like, who in the hell did I marry? You're getting a glimpse of what my son's like, whoa, what in the world is up with this person? And now it's worse because I'm like, I was a winner. Now I feel like a loser. The same way you got to be careful attributing your wins to yourself because, it's good for us to develop skills. It's good for us to learn. But I know skilled people that learned everything, Allah gave them nothing.
Yeah.
And I know people on the other end of that spectrum who have no skills, and you could say Allah gave them everything. So it's not up to what you do. What you're doing is just gratitude. What you're learning, working, you're just grateful. You're grateful. And inshallah, Allah give you more. But there's no promise to that. So I think that a big mistake that I made, that being able to look backwards, which I really enjoyed, that Allah gives me the opportunity to look back, is attributing my success to, oh man, you made that good investment. Oh man, I have even more information now, and there's still no promise that I could get to that level again. There's no promise of that. Allah has been beyond good to me even now, but that's something that I remember every day. Is no matter how good you get at something, I went and watched the Michael Jackson movie, and I read something Michael Jackson said. I had I always loved Michael Jackson, but I had a deeper interest in him after seeing the movie. He said the key to my success is staying humble.
Staying humble, yeah.
He said because God can always put somebody better than me in place. That's something I try to remember. If Michael Jackson's saying that, I've never seen an equal to Michael Jackson in my lifetime. He was before my time. If Michael Jackson's saying that, I don't know how to moonwalk. I probably should be looking at that like, whoa, at any chance. The only thing that's not replaceable is God. Everything else is being replaced nonstop. It's a tradition of this life. Trees die, another tree comes up. But people have been worshiping the same God since before me and you were even thought of. So the only thing that's not replaceable is him. So that means I should probably be very humble when things are good and things are bad.
Things are bad. I often tell people you should be more humble when things are good. A lot of times we tend to be less humble when things are good, and we're more humble when things are bad. But I say, hey, if even though we are obligated to pray 5 times a day, we may want to pray them extra prayers when things are going good.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Not just when they, when they're going bad. So, man, you shed a lot of jewels, man. Man, you listen. If you all didn't catch these Jews. This is a real story of entrepreneurship, and that's what this is all about. So I kind of want to move on to where you at today.
Yes, sir.
You know, what it is that you are currently doing today. Because like I say, I saw you in a restaurant. I said, man, I got to get you on the podcast. You said, man, I'm flying out tomorrow. I said, man, well, let's do it right
Yes,
now.
sir. Yes,
but explain, share with us currently what you're doing today. Where you at today and what you're doing today.
So I have 3 businesses now. The main one that I focus on is I have a home health agency here in Georgia where we take care of medically fragile children under the age of 21. So if you're if you have a child enrolled in Medicaid and they have any kind of medical issue, we can get you a nurse, or you can be paid yourself to take care of your child in the home. You can just go to compassionfirstllc.com, fill out the form, and we'll reach out to you. That's the main thing I'm focusing on because I'm more focused on things that number one, I'm more in acquisition, and because what I really learned, brother Ortez, is it's a poor man's game to start a business from scratch. It's just it's so pointless.
Yeah, I learned that.
Yeah, somebody else's issue they're facing in their business is something you're good at, and this guy feels like he's at the end. It's the beginning for you. So buy his company and build from there.
Build from there. Exactly. I would never start a business.
Never again.
Never
again. And when I learned that, I was like, I could have learned that if I had to listen to people. People were trying to tell me that.
I often tell people. Somebody asks me. You know, people ask me all the time, "Hey, do you keep your option open?" And I always say no. And somebody, why you don't keep your option open? I said, first of all, I ain't trying to work for your dream. That's the first thing. I'm not trying to buy into your vision. I'm clear on where I'm going.
Sir.
So it ain't no need for me to keep my options open. And I don't got enough bandwidth to do nothing else. Sir. And I'm not trying to grind from a business from a startup.
No.
You know, I'm not doing I did it. But I have no intentions on doing it again, so I'm with you on that.
Never again. Never ever again.
Yeah.
Never ever again.
Yeah.
I think a lot for the lessons, but I would not do it again.
Yeah, me either. I'm with you on that. And what's the other 2 businesses?
So we also have a factory in the Philippines, but I'm really I've been praying. I think I want to get out of the business just because it's so unstable dealing with you have a war this week, then we got the tariff thing next week.
Yeah.
So I'm not able to keep my pricing consistent for my consumer base. I don't like to feel into that.
Yeah.
You know, if I give a person a price on contract, I like to be able to honor that, which we've done, but that puts me at the point where I'm not profitable anymore.
Right.
So I'm thinking about getting out of that business for sure. So I've been slowing down with that. And then something a lesson that Allah has been consistently teaching me lately is sit still and just sit still. Sit still. Because, I moved my family over to Dubai. And I have to credit my dad for that. My dad has always, my dad moves like a prince in the Middle East. So I moved my family there for safety. And, the crazy thing is I'm safe in my community. But, you're looking at the allure of things. And so I moved there, and 8 months in, the Iran war starts. Now we got rockets going over your head.
Yeah.
What it reminded me of is you're not safe anywhere in this life.
Nowhere.
It's East Atlanta at this point is just as safe as Dubai. If you got God in your life, it's the same thing.
Same thing.
At any time, an earthquake, it doesn't matter. And so what I've been learning, so that's one of the things that Allah has presented to me, is sit still, focus on what's in front of you, and build with your community. And I'm realizing that I had the same skilled people here that were in Dubai. I mean, and even more, and what I appreciate more about people in my community is that they can fail and it's okay, right? And what I mean by that is a billionaire who grew up, whose dad had oil money and grew up a billionaire, he's telling himself, I'm committing suicide. And you see billionaires commit suicide almost every week. Yeah. They can't take failure.
Yeah.
People in my community, like yourself, like Brother Amin, like so many other people, they know what it's like to be on top, they know what it's like to be on bottom. So when we do something, they know the reality of this thing. If you look at the Arab countries right now, they're panicking because this war has shut them down. They don't even know how to take it.
Yeah, it's almost like 9/11. Like the Arabs didn't really know how to deal with the onslaught of white folks.
Might have been a black man.
But for us, we've been dealing with white folks.
Yeah.
Since slavery, so we good.
We know how to do it.
So we didn't. I was telling people that black Muslims didn't really go through as much that I know of. You didn't see people with shotguns walking around black massages. Because I said we would have came out there and handled it. That wouldn't happen. But you seen how they was oppressing, the Arabs. So same thing as you say, like, hey,
Word.
we know what it's like to be poor. So
Word.
if we lose it, mentally we know how to deal with it.
Word.
But in those countries where people was born into wealth, and now with the war and everything that's going on, psychologically, it's hard for them to deal with that,
Word.
which often leads to, some of them committing, unfortunately, suicide. So yeah, I get you on that.
Word.
So last question I want to ask, I always ask all my guests, man, and thank you, man, for being open and honest.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what really that I try to pull out of people about entrepreneurship.
Yes,
It's
sir.
easy to talk about how much money you make and the lifestyle. And unfortunately, that's what social media push these days. They push more of the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, but it's so much more to it
Yes,
than that. And even for the ones that have a lifestyle, once again, that's that nice suit that you put on, or if you're a woman, that nice dress you put
Yes,
on.
sir.
But when you take it off, it's a lot of ugly underneath that. So thank you for sharing that, man, and learning from those lessons.
Yes,
but see,
sir.
I commend you because even though you go through those things, it opens us up. If you're a real person, regardless if you're a male or female, entrepreneurship is designed to teach you lessons to make you better. And that's what they have done for me because I was, some of the things that you shared, I was the same way.
Yes,
but
sir.
as I got older, and even my daughter, she mentioned this. She said, "Daddy, you more work-life balance now because it ain't, I ain't just trying to chase I call my daughter. I get on her nerves now, and I say, you know why? Because I'm more about you now. It ain't about me chasing the money.
Yes, sir.
I want to hear stories like yours. I could be doing whatever I'm doing in business, but I love spending time now with my wife.
Yes, sir.
When
Yes,
it was
sir.
just about not spending time with family because I was always on the grind. But entrepreneurship taught me that. And said, man, I gotta do better. I gotta get, I gotta get a little bit more balance. I gotta think, before I react.
Yes, sir.
And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would say, think 5 times before you speak or react. So I kind of live by that, So I started to take more accountability because when you read our book, the Quran, it really talks about self-accountability.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know when I read it, that's all I get, self-accountability,
For
self-accountability. And so it done that. But in closing, where do you see yourself at in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I've been mostly focused on, as I said, I'm definitely gonna focus more on acquisitions, but I want to focus more on philanthropic work, meaning being able to be more involved with the youth. I think every child deserves a chance, a head start, if I should say. So if we have information we can pass on, or even we can make monetary contributions. I like to be involved in anything that involves helping children get to the next level. So I like to be able to focus on that more. But I want to, as far as a monetary thing, um, I want, I never like to share my prayers, brother Ortez, but I don't ask a lot for, I realize, and I'm gonna say this with a grain of salt. I realize the magnitude of who I'm of the God that we're talking to. So I never like to come asking for small things.
Right.
If somebody had Jeff Bezos' number, I highly doubt they'd be asking for $50 on Cash App.
No.
So I'm talking to the Lord of all the world. So I ask for humongous things, and so I anticipate in the next 5 years some of the things that I'm asking for are going to materialize. For sure. So that's kind of why I see it. I want to be more involved in our community. However, I'm one of those people who I know my place.
Right.
So whatever that looks like, wherever my skill set best fits in, I'm willing to be of service. Willing to be of service. So that's kind of where I see it.
Inshallah. But inshallah, man, I appreciate you, man, for taking your time out, impromptu time, because y'all can see he a busy man. Went well more expected than I thought. Man, you dropped some jewels, and I can't wait to drop this. Hopefully, the community listen to it. This one, I'm gonna tell, look, y'all, we need to play this. You know what I'm saying? We need to put this in the archives and be a class or something, man. I may have to get you to come back and do a class, man. But I appreciate you, man. Much success to you and your family.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to your family, man. I know your father, I know your brother and them. Good people, man. Y'all always, a family. For what I know, stick together and stuff, and your grandfather and stuff, and everything, man. So shout shout out to them too as well, man. But once again, man, appreciate you,
Thank
Doc.
you so much
Much
for having me.
success to you. May Allah preserve you. May Allah
Ameen, ameen,
protect you.
ameen, ameen.
May Allah bless you with abundance.
Ameen,
So until
ameen.
next time, thank you all for watching. This is Ortez with Ensure Your Success. And we're going to see you on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace.